Welcome back, math fans. Today you're here to find the least common multiple, or LCM, of given numbers. You'll need a pencil, a piece of lined paper, or the note sheet printed off of Google Classroom. You'll also need a prime factorization chart. You can either use the one that's provided on Google Classroom electronically, or you can print it off if you have access to a printer. Remember Math Talk. A multiple is defined as the product or answer of one whole number multiplied by another number. Multiples are always infinite because I can multiply by a number that is one higher. For example, if I look across the column for 2's on your multiplication chart, you can count by 2's by looking across. Those are your multiples of 2. But of course, multiples are infinite because I can keep counting by 2's or multiplying by a number that's one higher. And so after 20, I have 22, 24, 26, and so on. Multiples do not include the number 0. 0 is the only whole number that is not included as a number you multiply by. And it's not on your multiplication chart either. If I look for multiples of 3, I start with 3, then 6, then 9, and so on. Please know that multiples are also described as counting by numbers. In fact, when you were in elementary school, when your teacher asked you to count by 5, and you practiced 5, 10, 15, 20, you were not only counting by 5, but you are listing the multiples of 5. And it means the same thing. A least common multiple is defined as the smallest number that is a multiple of more than one number. The abbreviation for the least common multiple is LCM. So with the LCM, you're looking for the smallest number that is the same on both of your lists, because least means smallest. An example of this now is finding the LCM of 6 and 9. Your math teacher taught you to look across the row for 6's on your multiplication chart and list them. And so multiples of 6 or counting by 6 include 6, 12, 18, and so on. When you're comparing your list of multiples to another number, like 9, you're looking across the row for 9's and listing them. Multiples of 9 include 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, and so on. Now you'll notice that there's more than one common multiple on a list of numbers. But the LCM is the least common multiple, so you're looking for the lowest number that's the same on both lists. That's the LCM. So with this one, the LCM is equal to 36. Look again for 6 and 9 ahead. What if you don't have a multiplication chart, or you don't know all of your multiplication facts, or counting by 9's or 6's is hard for you? There is another way to find the LCM, of course. You can find it with prime factorization. So that's why your math teachers taught you how to do this already. Looking at factor trees to find the prime factorization now is something we've practiced together already. When I find the prime factorization for 28 and 42, it does help to know your math facts. 4 times 7 is 28, and so then I have to think, what two prime numbers can be multiplied together to equal 4? And that's where I get 2 times 2. 7 is already prime on your prime factorization chart, and so I just bring down the 7. So the prime factorization for 28 is 2 times 2 times 7. I know I can stop making my tree when I have all prime numbers at the bottom. 6 times 7 is the multiplication fact for 42. 6 is created by the primes 2 times 3. And 7 is already prime. And so looking at my prime factorization for 42, I know I'm done because 2 times 3 times 7 are all primes, multiplied together to equal 42. We talked about what looks the same. With our prime factorizations now for 28 and for 42, it helps to think, what do the numbers do they both share? And when you find them that they both have a 2 and they both have a 7, that's the GCF. 2 times 7 is 14, and so the GCF is the greatest common factor of both numbers. Looking at now the GCF, we do have to remember that if there are no common primes, the GCF is 1. The GCF is the common factors of both numbers. GCFs will be less than or equal to the given numbers. And so if you don't get a number that's smaller than or equal to the numbers you're looking at, that's not the GCF. The LCM is related to the GCF because it also includes the common factors. But the LCM is always greater than or equal to the given numbers. And so factors are numbers that are smaller than or equal to given numbers. Multiples are numbers that are greater than or equal to given numbers. Your prime factorization chart is linked to this intervention, and you'll use it again in 7th, 8th, and 9th grade too, because it includes the building blocks of numbers. What do you do if making trees is hard for you? Well, use your prime factorization chart. Today we're going to use it to find the LCM of the given numbers. It's similar to finding the GCF, so you've done part of this already before. Looking at now the numbers 4 and 10 on your chart. 4 is 2 times 2, and 10 is 2 times 5. When I look on my chart, I can see that they both have a 2. That's the GCF, but it's not the LCM. So since they both have a 2 now, to find the LCM, I have to think, what primes are different? Instead of what's just the same, what's different? When I look at the 4, I see that there's an extra 2 there. And when I look at the 10, I can see that the 10 has an extra 5. To find the LCM, I simply multiply by what's extra on the other number. For example, that 4 has this extra 2. That means that I have to share that 2 with the 10. The 10 has an extra 5, so I'm going to share that with the 4. Believe it or not, this gives me the LCM. It gives me the building blocks for those two numbers. Now I just have to multiply to find it. 2 times 2 is 4, times 5 is 20. And so the LCM of 4 and 10 is 20. Now this method works with these numbers all the time. So now you have two methods. Method number 1 is to make a list of multiples. I gave you 2 number examples on the slide because I want you to see how prime factorization is sometimes the best method to use. It's easier. Some people can count by 8s, like 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, and 56. But for some people that's hard. And counting by 14s is even harder. 14, 28, 42, 56. The LCM is 56. It's the least common multiple, but if I didn't have a prime factorization chart, counting by 8s or 14s is hard. Method number 2 with prime factorization is easier for many people. Most people know that 4 is 2 times 2 and 10 is 2 times 5. They can see that this 4 has this 2 that's extra, so I need to share it with the 10. And the 10 has a 5 that's an extra number, so I need to share it with the 4. And most people know that 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 times 5 is 20. And so that's your LCM. This is just simply another tool that you can add to your math toolbox. Another way of finding the least common multiple. Looking at example number 2 now, we're going to find the LCM for 6 and 9. Your first job is to think, what primes are the same for both? Please notice that the 6 has a 3, and the 9 also has a 3. And so the prime factorization for 6 and for 9, they both have this 3 right here that they share. Now look and think, what's different? The 6 has an extra 2 right here. And so I need to share that extra 2 with the 9. The 9 has an extra 3. And so I need to share that extra 3 with the 6. Please answer the question below. What's the LCM for 6 and 9?